we going? Where's our deck? Isn't live streaming to the Indonesia YouTube? All right. So where's the camera and where am I looking? Yes. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, warm welcome to all our online registrations. People there, as of a few minutes ago, we had over 60 people registered to join this hybrid briefing online from all around the world. And we are very fortunate and honored that this afternoon we have members of the media and also distinguished speakers who will give us an important overview of the situation of the Rohingya in Aceh. So, are we recording? Yes. So I would like to let everyone know online that this event is being recorded. Firstly, the arrivals of the Rohingya Boer people to Aceh in Indonesia has been rising in the past few weeks. This is actually quite an important development, but also it appears that the Rohingya refugees who are survivors of genocide are actually being targeted with a disinformation war and a hate campaign. So, firstly, we just wanted to give some information, 3 slides, to give an idea of what is the overall situation and why are the Rohingya fleeing. So firstly, if we look at the first slide, we will see that the majority of Rohingya refugees are still in Bangladesh, in some of the world's largest refugee camps, between 960,000 registered, and some estimates up to 1.2 million. 40,000 of them are in India, more than 100,000 in Malaysia, Thailand up to 4,000, and more recently, about more than 2,000 in total in Indonesia, mostly in Aceh. Why are Rohingya fleeing Bangladesh, especially at this time? Why are they suddenly leaving? Why is the high rate? We have to understand that in the refugee camps, food insecurity and malnutrition has increased. The food vouchers have been cut from $12 per person per month to $8 per person per month. But also, what is really making people afraid is the rise of crime. We have a very serious security problem in the camps in Bangladesh. And if you look for the first 9.5 months of 2023, there were 66 murders out of a camp population of nearly 1 million. If it continues, it means that there is 1 out of 11,566 people who will be killed in the camp this year. To get a better idea, in Indonesia, the statistic that we got from 2021 is that there is 1 murder for every 295,000 people. What that means is that if you are a refugee in a camp in Bangladesh, you are 26 times more in danger of being murdered. So now we can see why many families are taking the risk to send their children on the boat to Indonesia because of this fear and this very terrible problem of violent crime, where armed gangs armed with guns are terrorizing the refugee population. Furthermore, the Rohingya community has a very high priority for education for their children. And we have seen that the Rohingya are not allowed to run schools. In the past year, the risk of being forced back to Arakan state in Myanmar has increased. And instead of being allowed to return to their homes and villages, the forced repatriation program means that people will be forced to stay in camps built by China. They will not be allowed to return to their original homes. And as we can see in the past few months, armed conflict is increasing in Myanmar, especially in Arakan state. And why are Rohingya fleeing Myanmar now? Well, murder, torture, and sexual violence against Rohingya still continues to be common. The illegal junta in Myanmar forces Rohingya to carry identity cards, which falsely categorize them as Bengali. That means they are treated as foreigners. During February 2021 to July this year, the regime arbitrarily arrested and detained nearly 4,000 Rohingya, many of them women and children, for traveling within the country without permission. So they are treated like illegal people in Arakan and Myanmar. What we saw in May was the natural disaster of Cyclone Mocha. Within 4 hours of the cyclone, within 24 hours of the cyclone, 400 Rohingya died because they were not allowed to evacuate from the internally displaced camps in Rakhine State. And even now, more than 50,000, 57,000 Rohingya are still lacking adequate shelter because of Cyclone Mocha. That's in May, it's already December. Malnutrition has worsened and people are starting to commit suicide. More than 140,000 Rohingya are still in internal detention camps, and in some camps, there's only one toilet for 1,300 people. And even now, the junta is still blocking humanitarian aid. So you can imagine the sheer desperation that is forcing the Rohingya to risk their lives to escape the situation from Bangladesh or Arakan state in Myanmar. So that should give us the sobering effect to understand why are people living. It is not because they have a choice. It is for sheer survival. And we are very as I said, honored to have amazing speakers to give their views on the situation, especially on how to handle this hate, the hate campaign that has targeted the Rohingya people. And but before we do that, we want to hear the voice of Rohingya. So Yasmin Ullah, a Rohingya refugee, who was in Indonesia in August and September, could not make it to this event because she is in Geneva at the Global Refugee Forum. She has sent us a good message. So I would like to play for all of you. Please go ahead.
Fishermen who went out to rescue Rohingya boats. To all nationals who remain equipped and care for Rohingya arriving in inshore, and to all nations who have not given up on Rohingya and the cause for justice. I thank you, my personal daily. I have been faithful and steadfast in trust in the wisdom of attributes, who treat us with kindness and care for us like we're your brothers and sisters. And this press conference today, for those who are watching online, unfortunately, I could not be there in person. Please know, the peace of my heart remains in Indonesia and never left. My name is Yasmin Ullah, and I'm a Rohingya currently leading the effort to humanize uplift and rebuild the Rohingya community through the work of the Rohingya Mayflower Collaborative Network. At 3 years of age, I had to leave Abakan, my homeland behind, due to increased political violence. It wasn't my choice. I became a refugee living in precarious conditions with no protection in Thailand. But the fortunately campaign against the Indonesia today is no unique, nor is it a new occurrence. However, it is something that all parties and all stakeholders must collaborate to address, since the well-being of Rohingya is an important indicator to the stability of ASEAN as a region. If we fail Rohingya, we fail at the dream of making ASEAN an inclusive and thriving community of people with shared values and common goals. I am here today with will and spirit, not only to address this issue of hate because it affects my community solely, but also to ensure that we prevent this kind of hate from festering. One vulnerable group being exploited concerns all of us. The Rohingya issues will be a litmus test for how other vulnerable groups could also be protected. It is extremely important to know that both Indonesia and Myanmar had shared struggles, especially during the decolonization process. We were an important part of the struggles for independence in Myanmar, especially during the unification process. After gaining independence, Burma extended some help during the Indonesian struggles for independence from the Dutch colonization. During early 1949, when Indonesia was under attack by the Dutch force, India and Burma organized a conference in support of Indonesia and condemned the Dutch second military aggression. Burmese government, under the leadership of the Prime Minister Moon, supported the Indonesian struggles for independence from the Dutch by allowing the Indonesian Airways aircraft to Dakota 11001 Silawa to operate in Burma. The aircraft itself was a gift from Achinese people to President Sukarno. The two countries gained independence right around the same time and have since been close bilateral relations. Be it Rohingya as the people of Burma, Achinese, or Indonesians, we are not a people so different or so removed from one another. We strive for a better future, just the same. Except for today, Myanmar is plunged into endless violence and cycle of struggles for peace because of the impunity enjoyed by Myanmar junta and the power elites. Many of whom have been enabled by governments and other actors in the region. However, the people of Myanmar Burma are laying down their lives to bring back their country, including Rohingya, to rebuild, to reform, and to eradicate military juntas ideology in our consciousness. I feel trying to democratize and end impunity. There are some of us who've been heavily impacted, like the Rohingya. For communities like mine, undergoing genocide is not simply something that happens and end overnight. The process of annihilation by the Myanmar junta has been long and drawn out since 1942, despite the Rohingya being part and parcel of the democratization and unification of Burma. Our legacy and our existence have been erased. Being refugees and being burdensome to others in the region is not who we are, and never in life we wish for ourselves. No one chooses to become a refugee. No one chooses the typical violent being unwanted everywhere. The fact that we needed to flee, the fact that we needed our parents have to decide to put their children on a flimsy boat adrift in the turbulent Andaman Sea for 20 to 30 days on end, not knowing whether they will make it out alive, only them to be deemed unwanted. It's not a life anyone deserves. What we wish is that Indonesians who know what struggles for democracy and independence look like could empathize for us. Many of fleeing from Bangladesh to Myanmar are not doing it to be oppressed or to burden your society. It is done because we have no place to go. We have nothing else left to lose. And developments that are increasing in numbers of newly arrived Rohingya are one indication of the desperation in community. The best way to fight this crisis is not to put the fact that see or question our existence as a people. Help us envy and feeling in our country so that we can go back home. Help us to actually stable express peaceful living. Please help us build a proof of that. Brick by brick. While we wait for that to happen, for more than financial workers bring them the need to raise our children and be a contributing member of Indonesian and ASEAN societies. Having a stolen member within the diaspora, I feel as a testimony for what could become of the women if we given classes and opportunities to better ourselves beyond our deprivation we've experienced in the past generations. Marginalizing Rohingya does not help anyone. It only breaks the social cohesion and a new barrel of good steam and more vulnerable. If you would allow us, let's prove to you how capable we are. As a human organization, we are committed to do all that we can to uplift the community, Indonesia, to become contributing members of society. We will bring all the resources and advocate for the effective help that Indonesian government wanted to support our community. Let us work together for the protection of everyone in our region and for the betterment of ASEAN. Thank you.
Thank you, yes, and for members of the media who wish to set up site interviews with her, please let me know. I will link you to Yasmin in Geneva. She's in Geneva this week for the Global Refugee Forum. For friends who have just walked into the venue and for people who just joined us online, welcome to the briefing titled Countering Hate Narratives Against Rohingya, the Role of Indonesia and ASEAN. Thank you to the more than 60 people who registered on to join us online, despite the short notice. This event was organized very quickly in response to the emergency that's happening in Aceh, not only the arrival of Rohingya people, but more concerning the hate speech pretended. I need another, sorry, this one's not here. Okay, so the this briefing is co-organized by 10 organizations: SUAKA, the Indonesian Civil Society Organization for Refugee Rights Protection; Progressive Voice; AJA, Indonesia Issue Justice and Rights; Initiatives for International Dialogue Philippines; Rohingya Mayafinal Collaborative Network, which is led by Rohingya women, refugees; Contrast Indonesia, Forum Asia, Aman Indonesia, ASEAN Parliamentarians for Human Rights, and ASEAN Burma. My name is Debbie. I'm the coordinator of ASEAN Burma, and I will be your moderator this afternoon. Amongst our distinguished speakers, we have the honor of introducing a representative of ASEAN Parliamentarians for Human Rights. ASEAN Parliamentarians for Human Rights is a multi-partisan network of members of parliament from ASEAN countries who have been focused on the issue of human rights in ASEAN, and definitely more substantially on the situation in Burma, Myanmar. Pak Bobby Rizal, thank you so much for coming to join us. And I'm going to hand over the mic to Pak Bobby. He has, yes, there's a PowerPoint up there, a presentation up there, and as Pak Bobby has been meeting with a lot of people from Burma, Myanmar, including Yasmin, a few weeks ago, a few months ago. So, and he's been following the situation. I'm going to hand over the mic to him.
Thank you, Debbie, dan juga semua rekan-rekan sudah hadir dan dari organisasi media dan juga rekan-rekan dari media. mungkin sedikit saya bahasa Indonesia sebelum different with my little English. Jadi saya langsung saja, karena tema kita hari ini adalah bagaimana kita bisa menyelesaikan problematik yang ada di beberapa lokasi yang menjadi tempat siang dari masyarakat Rohingya. So I'm gonna start with, maybe we should skip my my slides, maybe from 1, 2, and 3. At the moment, we jump to the slide number 4. At the moment, the issues now concerning the Rohingya refugees in Indonesia is going viral, not only in the conventional media, but also spreading in social media online. That there's some tendencies that our local resident not really accept the refugees that fled through the oceans, and in some of the news, they are blocking the way to the beach front. It's so sad, I know, to see what's going on over there. But I have to point and underline that based on our constitution, Indonesia is no doubt is anti-colonization in any form. And also, we are put the human rights as the most important things to be honored on these things. But all of this complexity it's cannot be simplified by having the increasing of the refugee influx that make the local resident jealousy. And now, in both the media, by online, the conventional media, there is some negative framing of the refugees. So we have to understand and identify what's the roots of the failure that should be addressing to this refugee crisis. As of December 2023, maybe my number it's not really accurate. Maybe David could be comment on this. At the moment, I only have 1,500 refugees that now arrive in Indonesia. Is it more than that?
Almost 1,700.
1,700. Okay. 1,700. I have 1,500. So we should start with the legal basis of the Indonesian government in accepting the refugees. Since we are not obliged to accept the refugee in any matters, because we are not ratifying the 1951 Refugee Convention and the 1967 Protocol, we have our local regulations. The Article 3 of the Presidential Regulation 125-2016 about the discovery, sheltering, security, and immigration supervision and refugees, and also the Article 26 of Law Number 37-1999 stipulates that the granting of asylum to foreigners. So this is the legal basis why we are accepting the Rohingya refugees. So even though we have to spread out these things, because Indonesia not resistant, even we have not ratified the protocol and the convention, we still accept the refugees. But with some development, and why in maybe in the past 5 to 10 years, why now there's some rejection from our local residents to the refugees. So maybe this is not in the media, but as a parliament, I have and obtained some information from the government why these issues now raised. So after we know the legal basis, we have to understand what the roots cause the resident is not really happy. Not like years ago to have the refugees from the Rohingya. First, from the uh, perspective, we should divide into three different things. We have to understand the perspective from the government. We have to understand the perspective from the local residents or society. And we have to understand also the perspective from the local authorities. As you already been presented, we have no issue about the regulation gap. Even we don't ratify the convention, the protocol, there's no legislation or regulation gap to accept the refugees. That's the principle. But the implementation, why now it's become the big issues. Behind the story of this, we have to ensure that all the infrastructure from the downstream and to the upstream is already in line, because we are besides we are a developing country also, we should to be not appear. We are already human rights supporting, but this matter we cannot see just from the human rights center. This is a multi-dimension. Why I said a multi-dimension? First, there's some suspicion from our government and the local authorities. What things the matters that make them suspicious? They will or they feel that the hospitality of the Indonesian nation is misused by some criminals, usually in the one that do some human trafficking. So if this Rwanda suspicion, what should we do? From the other side, we should encourage that whoever the refugees come to Indonesia, they have to able to present their really origin fled from the Rakhine state or from the unstabilized region, or they are from the refugee camp, seeking for more comfortness rather than to their survival of their life. So this is two different things. Under any regulation, under any legislation what we have in Indonesia, we should accept whoever refugees that fled from their origin country. We have to. We never resist. But if they are come up from the refugee camp, this is the one that create another problem. What's the problem? Now we are shift to the local authorities and society. There's some disappointment from the local authorities. Why? Like I said, we are not ratifying the protocol and convention. And some of the organ from the body from the UN, UNHCR, then the IOM, the International of Migration, have some project with the local authorities let's say in Aceh, in some parts, to build a shelter, to build some assistance in infrastructure. And the money is borrowed from the local authorities. But after the project is done, there is no assistance. So it means all the cost is spared to the local authorities. The cost will be demanded to be reimbursed from the national government. So this is the one that make the local authorities also have some assistance. This is my I'm delivering the information that I obtained, but maybe it's not shared in the media. And because lack of the infrastructure and the system of some shelter make some uncomfortness to the refugees, they may going out and make some things that not really make the local residents comfort. That's the initial things that become bigger, bigger, and bigger, and now become the systemic. This is the one that we should address to be resolved. So we have to put this not as in the human right centric only, like I said. It's some multi-dimensional that we should identify. We should try to analyze to how to resolve it, and then we should come up with a solution. Whether the solution should come up from a national government or local authorities or from the society or from the refugee himself. Now we are open from discussion, but I want to underline once again, Debbie, Indonesia is very with warm-hearted, wholehearted, will not resist and will accept any of the refugee that they have to survive their life. That's the underlying, even though we are not ratifying, we have the legislation, we have the regulation, we have the infrastructure. But there's another thing. We don't want this hospitality to be misused by some we consider as a party that's not really responsible for what should they do. So we don't want to be framing that we are not want to be framed as we are not human rights supportive. No, no. But we also have some stance. We have some position stance that we should make sure and clear that the refugees were fled from the Rohingya is really the one, the parties, their family that really need to survive their life directly from their current situation. Not the one that's seeking confidence, not the one that not should be eligible to be labeled as the refugees. Because if you are knowing that people coming to Indonesia that they pay, from the other country, are they really eligible as the refugees that should be there within the Indonesian hospitality? So I think this is just the point that we could discuss, and maybe we should have some solution whether it come from the government or the local authorities or the society, and the result and the summary of today's meeting. I will pass it to the government, especially in my commissions, in my chamber is the foreign affair that my minister now is in Geneva, and from the this morning news, she will delivering the some the cases of the refugees in Aceh. And I hope with the discussion and with some point that we could conclude and formalizing the solution, all of this, the stakeholder could be reunite, regrouping, consolidate, and maybe we be able to accept all the refugees that need to be survived within our nation. So I just want to repeat once again, this is not a matter only from the human rights perspective, but this is with also some other things like the infrastructure, some assistance, some collaboration, and some of the understanding from the stakeholder, so we could be enjoy working together. We could develop the things that we need to serve the refugees, and then they have a new life. They can begin their new home. They can grow their family here, and then they can live as an Indonesian. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pak Bobby. It is quite interesting to see what is the perspective of the government in terms of trying to differentiate who is a refugee and who is not a refugee. I think from the statistics, the very basic statistics coming out of the Bangladesh camp, if you are a parent with children and you are facing 26 times more risk of murder and other violent crimes, and your food has been cut by 40%, and starvation is imminent, and you are also at risk of being forced back to Rakhine State to be put in camps, another type of camp. Then in a war zone, then it's quite clear that you are several times a refugee. But also for those who missed the video message from Yasmin Gula, a Rohingya refugee herself, she expressed solidarity and gratitude to the people of Aceh and Indonesia for hosting the Rohingya refugees, but also acknowledge that they don't want to be a burden, that they are prepared to work for their food, that they want to bring the resources necessary for their protection into the country. So the question is, yes, it should not be the sole burden of the local government for this, because this is a regional humanitarian problem. So what are the steps possible? We're very privileged to have in the room with us today, Ibu Adelina Kaman, who has worked for several decades in the ASEAN Secretariat and also was the former executive director of the AHA Center. She is considered one of the leading experts in humanitarian issues in this region. So I would actually like to pass the mic on to Adelina in terms of understanding what, if we are looking at the situation as a regional humanitarian issue, what should Indonesia and ASEAN be doing?
Thank you very much, Lady. I thought that I would be speaking after the others because I came a bit late. But first of all, thank you very much for having me and for me, the co-organizers of the event, to share my thoughts about what Indonesia and ASEAN could do, and also what our civil society can do collectively, of course. There are 3 points that I would like to share with you, and I will be right to the point here, right to the chest. First of all, food costs. If Indonesia wants to stop the flow of Rohingya refugees once and for all, then the only durable and lasting solution is to end the Myanmar military dictatorship and to support the pro-democracy movement in their quest for an inclusive society, including Rohingya. If we want to only sugarcoat the problem by having convenient approaches, then forget it. Then you will keep having the Rohingya not only to Indonesia, but also to other countries in the region. And the non-stop flows of the Rohingya refugees in other countries of the region is actually a reflection on what is happening inside Myanmar. And the consequence is not only the Rohingya refugees, but also other things that we may not feel and experience directly. So the only lasting and best solution is to work on the core issue, to work on the root cause of the problem. And we know what the root cause of the problem. That is the Myanmar military dictatorship. And to end their violence against the Rohingya. Now, I'd like to echo what Yasmin said in her video, and I hope that the others who were not able to join earlier would use the opportunity to look at the video later. Any Rohingya refugees that I have talked to want to go back to their ancestral homeland. There is Rakhine or the Arakan in the past. They are longing to go back to their homeland. And I have to say, because I think the hate speeches that have been floating around have mentioned that these are uncivilized population. I just returned from London and I saw an evidence in the British Museum, which is quite sad, that actually show their civilization back in the 16th, 17th, and 18th century. Their presence in Arakan dated back to not only hundreds, but thousands of years. So they want to go back. The drifting and to go back when it is safe to do so. And to create that safe space is to ensure that we remove the cancer. And that cancer, we all know, is the Myanmar. So this is thing Indonesia and ASEAN. Rohingya refugees that rethink our strategy, including the 5-point consensus have to be reframed. And one thing for sure is that Myanmar military will never be part of the solution, because they don't want the Rohingya to go back to their homeland, and they refuse the integration, which actually happened thousands of years ago, where they actually live peacefully with others in Arakan. I will elaborate later on today what can and what should be done in terms of reframing the ASEAN 5-point consensus. But we all know that ASEAN 5-point consensus doesn't address the issue of Rohingya. No. And even out of the 5-point consensus, out of the 5 points, the most important issue is not progressing anywhere. There is succession of violence. We focus too much on sugarcoating. That is humanitarian assistance and dialogue. Okay, so that is number one, root cause. Now, number two, today's webinar is about how to counter the hate narratives, and we should do so urgently. Because what is happening right now is a humanitarian irony. The local communities, the fishermen, and the local humanitarians want to help the Rohingya communities. And they have been doing so more than a decade. Why is this phenomenon only happening now? Right? So it's quite an irony. I call it humanitarian irony because they want to help, but they are prevented from doing so. Now, and there is more irony than that because you have the presidential regulation. Even Malaysia doesn't have a presidential regulation. Indonesia is much more advanced than any other countries who don't sign the convention. Now, so we need to counter the hate narratives urgently. And if there is anything that we can do in the next few days and weeks and months, that should be it. That is to counter the hate narratives urgently. I think this is where there is a need to investigate who actually initiated this, the source of the hate campaigns, who initiated the rumors or the disinformation. If it is initiated by the academic professionals and law experts, then other law experts from Indonesia need to counter that actively. If it is initiated by the ulama, then a group of ulama will have to counter that. Because I don't believe that, that we should let babies die. How would we actually, there is no explanation for that, right? Even by Islamic values. If it is the youth that started that, then a group of youth and students will have to counter that. It is our responsibility to do that. Then the government should also do that. And I'm glad that there's a parliament member here, but because we are looking forward to your support to pressure our government as our representative and to fill the vacuum. What we need is a national leadership, and we are in the midst of campaign right now. The president has said that the Rohingya people have to be safe immediately and provided with temporary humanitarian assistance, and that these smugglers will have to be investigated. Then do that. Investigate the smugglers, but do not victimize the Rohingya people, and also do not victimize those who want to provide humanitarian assistance to the Rohingya people. It's a failure of the government and every one of us for not being able to provide protection to the local humanitarians, to the fishermen, and anyone who wants to actually extend our help to the Rohingya people. So that is my number 2, irony. Number 3, on the issue of trafficking and smuggling, obviously that has because that concerns our national security, but it cannot be used as an excuse. Just do it, but also address the humanitarian issues and also anticipate the consequences for undermining um, the goodwill of the Achaeans. Because the Achaeans have said that it is not them, it is not them, this is not Achaeans values. So those are the three: the root cause, the irony, and just address it, but don't victimize the Rohingya people and don't victimize our own people. I will stop at that, David.
Thank you so much, Evelina, for your compassionate but also fact-based and logical approach that in order for us to have a durable solution, we have to address the root cause. But also reminding us that the hate campaign is not consistent with Aceh's values. In fact, more than 10 years ago, it was the fisherfolk of Aceh who inspired us in the region because they defied the Indonesian Navy and went out to sea and pulled back the Rohingya boats. They extended such compassion even though they themselves were not rich. And that is what has been very moving and also very concerning, that the hate campaign is not just demonizing the Rohingya boat people, but the hate campaign is also vilifying the Acehese people and the people working so hard on the ground to support and protect the refugees. On that point, we are very happy and pleased that we have a representative from SWACA, which is the Indonesian civil society organization working for refugee rights protection, and SWACA, along with a number of other civil society organizations, are on the ground in Aceh at this time. I would like to welcome Jayanti Arni Kusumadewi to give us some insights on what is happening on the ground. As Ibu Evelina was talking, she was talking about also the fact that people on the ground who are Indonesian and Acehese are also being subjected to harms, not only because they are supporting or helping the refugees. So I'm handing over to you, Annie.
Okay, thank you, to Alina and also Debbie. Start to open this brief forum. However, in the discussion, let me represent the CSOs to focus on the hate narrative in social media and what we can possibly do today to counter what happened, together with the journalists in Indonesia and also regionally or internationally. So for the background, until today, the last data that we received is in 10 December 2023. There are 9 boats disembarked in different areas of Aceh with around 1,500 refugees. So our data is apparently the same with what Bobby has presented before. We don't know whether the data will add on the days or the weeks after today, but for now it's 105,000 refugees, with the majority of children, around 700 children. So most of the refugees are children. And before we start, of course, we would like to say thank you to UNHCR, IOM, and also the government of Indonesia and the local government of Aceh to provide temporary shelter for refugees. Now there are around 5 temporary shelters around Aceh. And also thank you for the CSOs, NGOs, local people of Aceh who's trying to help with humanitarian assistance, with food, with anything they're able to help. throughout this month, especially between 14 November to 10 December. The number of this year's refugees disembarked in Aceh is higher compared to the last 3 years combined, which of course we are highly aware that it would create a turmoil in society, especially in social media. This is the 21st century, so the turmoil would happen in social media, and as what Debbie said, this is not something new. It happens before, but yeah, before it happens in Facebook, now it's all over Instagram, Twitter, news, and TikTok and other social media platforms. So there has been a negative information spread on the internet. Many organizations have been a target of this hate speech. Not just UNHCR, but also other local CSOs. Ourselves, Suaka, we have received also hate speeches on our social media platform, not to mention the amount of hoax, the amount of fake accounts created, I would say, by responsible parties. So there's been a blurry lines between what is right and what is wrong in the internet. So in this forum, we hope that we can clear it up and find a way to neutralize the number of misinformation going on in the internet with the help of other CSOs and also with the journalists here. What do we try to do during this time? We believe to be able to counter or to neutralize the misinformation, we need to be able to find a way to counter what has happened and what will happen in the future, so the possibilities. CSOs, we must continue to monitor whether the implementation of the process carried out by the government and also parties is in accordance with the Presidential Decree 135 in the year of 2016 that we have. So by far, there has been no refolement, even though the refolement almost happened, but apparently we find a way to not do it. We highly appreciate that. We also have taken several actions to respond to this, such as independent press release, joint releases with other CSOs. So every time there's an incident that could be dangerous in the future, we hope that CSOs will continue to make joint releases. Also, we need to have a sustainable campaign regarding the Rohingya issues, collaborating with different parties, collaborating with volunteers of the CSOs, collaborating with students and academics. Also the discussion with journalists and academics. As what Adelina said, we believe that academics should open a discussion in the future to discuss about the Rohingya refugees based on the educational background, and also journalists can voice the news, the positive news more to neutralize the situation nowadays. However, we do realize that there has been a minimal understanding about Rohingya and refugees in Indonesia before this month, especially. Also, from the information that we get from our fellow journalist friend, that there have been difficulties for journalists to find sources to verify whether the data provided on the internet is right or not. So I would say that if there are joint media briefings created by the CSOs around Aceh or around Jakarta, please do go there and ask about the data provided by them. Hopefully that is the right data so that the journalists can have a way to verify it. And it's also, as a CSO, we need to make sure that we are available for journalists to ask a fact check about the information given before writing the news. And I believe that we all know the impact if we write a wrong information on the internet. And so we hope that the journalists can fact check regarding every information that you received. You may ask international organizations on the ground that you know to also check whether the information given by other parties are in line with what happened on the ground. So positive publication in handling Rohingya refugees should also be sounded, because we do believe that on the ground, people of Aceh are very helpful with the situation now. That would also be a good way to spread positivity and to counter and neutralize the situation now. Just for a closing, I hope that we can be mindful of what we write and what we said, especially in the matter of humanitarian rights today. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Annie. We are going to open the floor to questions, just to remind our first speaker was Yasmin, to express gratitude to people of Indonesia and Aceh, and also express solidarity. But as a Rohingya refugee herself, described the desperate conditions that Rohingya refugees have to flee, and that Rohingyas do not want to be a burden, that they're willing to work for the food that they need, that they have a lot to contribute to the society. So this is the situation. And also, we had Bobby reminding us the government line, but also reminding us it's a presidential decree, and in many respects, Indonesia is actually ahead in terms of official, legal, and policy frameworks on the reception of refugees. And so there's a little bit of a gap to operationalize that completely. Iberlina reminded us in a very practical way that the durable solution, it requires the removal of the military junta and the establishment of an inclusive society in Burma, Myanmar. But in the meantime, there's a lot we can do now, including in terms of countering the fake narratives. And Annie from Annie from Soka actually reminded us of the reality on the ground, that both Acehese people who are helping the refugees, as well as civil society groups and hate groups, are also being threatened and vilified and targeted in hate speech. It would appear that there is a disinformation war targeting the Rohingya, and we need to understand the steps that we need to take as media, as civil society, and as members of the public. But we also need to question who benefits from this disinformation, who benefits from this hate. We have 4 questions online. A lot of them actually I would be answering. But before I open that, are there any people in the room, in person here, who would like to ask a question? Yes, Rosa's going to pass. There's 3 people who will ask a question. So, yeah, 1, 2, 3. So, please identify yourself. And if you have a specific question to one of our panelists, please name them.
Terima kasih. Jadi mungkin bahasa Indonesia aja ya, biar langsung.
Bisa.
Jadi juga bisa memahami bahasa Indonesia dengan baik. Terima kasih. Saya Iwan Kurniawan dari Majalah Tempo. Saya mengajukan ini juga sekaligus menanggapi 2 hal sebetulnya dari diskusi sore ini. Yang pertama dengan Pak Budi. Saya hanya mencoba mengkonfirmasi apa gitu ya. Tadi Pak Dori menyampaikan bahwa ada keluhan dari pemerintah daerah terhadap pembangunan yang ternyata kemudian tidak ada dana untuk mengembalikan asistensi dan sebagainya. Beberapa hari yang lalu saya ketemu dengan IOM dan dia menjelaskan tidak sepeser pun dana Pemda daerah yang dipakai. Jadi menurut mereka, karena ini salah satu isu yang muncul di medsos kan, bahwa Rohingya ini menghabiskan anggaran negara, anggaran Pemda dan sebagainya. Dia membantah bahwa tidak 1%. Justru yang bisa dilakukan oleh mereka ada IOM dan ASEAN di sana adalah menunggu otoritas pemerintah daerah, karena yang berhak memutuskan pengungsi ini yang baru mendarat di Aceh misalkan itu berada di mana, itu otoritasnya pada mereka, tidak pada para UN, ASEAN dan IOM. Sehingga mereka menunggu dulu nih, ketika Pemda menyatakan bahwa pengungsi ini ditempatkan katakanlah di suatu rumah akan begitu ya, atau gudang atau apa begitu, suatu tempat yang available. Nah, baru para pengungsi ditaruh di sana. Setelah itu seluruhnya diurusi oleh IOM. Dia bilang bahkan kalau itu disewa, sewanya pun dibayarkan oleh IOM. Seluruh makanan dan sebagainya semua dilakukan IOM. Nah, soal perilaku warga di sana, yang namanya turun lama-lama juga kadang pengen keluar atau apa gitu. Mereka tidak bisa mengatur itu sebetulnya. Tapi dia bilang sepanjang untuk mengurusi fungsi sampai pemerintah Indonesia memutuskan bagaimana nasibnya lagi, itu mereka menunggu keputusan pemerintah. Karena dia bilang faktanya setelah di Aceh, kemudian pemerintah memutuskan dari Kementerian Dalam Negeri untuk mereka juga direlokasi ke Medan dan Riau. Jadi ada 3 tempat sekarang Rohingya yang dari Aceh. Nah, ketika dilakukan ya mereka menyiapkan itu, menyiapkan pemindahan dan sebagainya. Barangkali perlu kita sama-sama cek and recheck ya. Pokok persoalannya di mana sih? Saya juga akan itu keterangan mereka, mungkin Bapak punya sumber yang lain menjelaskan itu. Nah, kita sama-sama melihat di mana masalahnya. Itu pertama. Kemudian yang kedua soal isu yang hate speech ini kan di media sosial, bukan di media massa. Saya bisa pastikan teman-teman jurnalis, termasuk saya ketika menuliskan media kalau berusaha lah untuk mendapatkan informasi dari sumber-sumber yang kredibel, kan. Tapi ketika isu itu dan memang laporan dari UNHCR kan bahwa serangan itu terjadi adalah serangan cyber. Nah, yang jadi pokok masalah seperti tadi Mbak Devi juga menyampaikan, ini yang diuntungkan siapa ini? Jadi pelakunya siapa? Benarkah? Ya, ada kecurigaan misalnya bahwa ini pelaku memang terorganisir, entah buzzer atau apa begitu ya. Kalaupun itu memang ada, berarti kan ada tujuannya dong. Kan nggak mungkin ini mereka yang dikerahkan tanpa ada arah segala macam gitu loh Pak. Saya saja misalnya kalau saya di artis mengerahkan buzzer kan dengan saya, entah komunitas saya atau dan sebagainya. Nah kalau ini kan juga sekecil apapun dana yang digelontorkan mengerahkan para buzzer ini, tentulah ada tujuannya. Nah tujuan ini kemana? Kalau isu terakhir kan dorong desakannya kan pengusiran penutupan UNHCR dan sebagainya. Apakah sampai sejauh itu? Nah mungkin Pak Bobi atau teman-teman di ASEAN Parliamentary punya informasi lebih nih, bisa menjelaskan pada kita dulu perkara dari gerakan masif ini apa dan kenapa sekarang terjadinya? Ya kan? Isu Rohingya udah lama, sampai di Aceh udah lama, dan bahwa terjadi beberapa kali konflik, artinya sesekali ya pergesekan lah, itu wajar namanya masyarakat ya, ada perbedaan-perbedaan, tapi udah lama. Dan kenapa pada Rohingya? Tidak pada yang lain, misalnya pengungsi berbahasa Indonesia adalah Afghanistan yang ada di Indonesia, itu ribuan, tersebar sampai ke Ciawi sana, di kampung Arab di Ciawi, kan banyak begitu. Keluhan ada. Kami juga pernah menulis mengenai itu. Tapi tidak sampai terjadi penolakan besar seperti yang sekarang. Apa sebetulnya yang terjadi? Nah, barangkali itu 2 pertanyaan saya, barangkali bisa membantu mencerahkan kita. Ini dari kemarahannya kemana ini SPC ini? Apakah terkait dengan pemilu atau tidak? Saya tidak. Terima kasih.
Okay. Thank you, Pak Iwan. So for our audience online, especially who are joining, more than 60 people joining from around the world, I'm going to paraphrase the question of Pak Iwan from Tempo. The first one was directed to Pak Bobby because Pak Bobby previously said that the local government authorities, the provincial government, was feeling the burden of dealing with the refugees. But Pak Iwan actually said he interviewed the IOM, the International Organization for Migration, which clarified that they're covering all the costs of taking care of the refugees, including paying for rent or space where the refugees are housed, and that not a single cent of the provincial government's budget has been used. So the only burden at this point on the provincial government is to actually give authorization on where the refugees should be taken, and also so that IOM can do the services. And I think this is also true of the other humanitarian agencies. So he wanted clarification on that. The other question was on the hate speech, the hate campaign online, which was mainly happening in social media. Taiwan called this cyber attack. And this is not work being done by the mainstream media, but actually on social media, who are these cyber warriors attacking? Who benefits from this hate campaign? What is the actual intention of this hate campaign? And why now, when Rohingya have been in the country for so long, in Indonesia, especially Aceh, and why the Rohingya, not the other refugee communities who are also seeking shelter in Indonesia? So those are the questions. I think it's a long question, so we have 3 more people in the queue and quite a few other questions online. Usually when we have these events, nobody wants to ask a question, but I think we're going to be very busy responding to the high level of interest. Before I hand over the mic to Bobby, I wanted to acknowledge the presence of Ibu Eva Sundari from the ASEAN Parliamentarians for Human Rights. Ibu Eva has also been following the situation in Burma for quite some time. Very long. Very long. Actually, we knew each other more than 20 years, so during that time. So I'm going to hand over to Bobby.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you, Iwan. Maybe I'll answer with English. No, so I'd like to begin. This is a very good question, Iwan. I think your question will be concluded as the summary of our meeting today, and I think this is the one that we should pass to the government. Yes, we should to identify the root cause of these things. And your question, I think the detail of the identification, I think will be the answer of this question. And I just want to say that we need to understand and obtain the fact also from the stakeholder, in this case is from the local authorities, which one is the correct one. If the IOM and the UNHCR is really giving all the funds to assist all of the cost burden by having accepting the refugees, I don't think we don't have any serious issue serving and treat the refugee and then make them to grow their life in Indonesia. I'm not saying this is too good to be true, no, but I also like to understand whether the IMO and UNHCR really have the fund to assist. So if the things is have the real good fund, I don't think there's no reason not to treating and accepting all of the refugees coming to ASEAN and all other parts of Indonesia. So I think we should propose what Adelina also mentioned in her session, that investigation should be conducted here to obtain the information, the fact that can be the solution of these matters immediately. And having the stakeholder of the law enforcement taking care of this. Jadi dengan kata lain Pak, setuju dengan pertanyaan tersebut sehingga kita akan usulkan dalam forum ini mungkin bisa disampaikan Bu Eva bahwa pemerintah harus menginvestigasi bagaimana komitmen-komitmen dari para stakeholder yang nantinya bisa dikolaborasikan untuk menjadi suatu solusi implementasi dari artikel-artikel dan juga produk hukum yang dibuat di Indonesia dalam hal mentreat refugee dari negara-negara di luar Indonesia. And the second one about the hate speech in the social media, I just note something here. One of the issue is there's a hidden intention from the refugee to occupy some land and obtaining illegally from the resident. And the other thing is the issue that went viral is they are not appreciating nasi bungkus gitu kan, kurang katanya, kurang banyak. The issues that went viral is the disobedience with the local norms, tidak menghormati adat lokal, dan juga isu bahwa there should be separated between men and women, sehingga banyak narasi-narasi bahwa pengungsi ini berzina di tanah suci. Nah, hal-hal yang sudah kadung menjadi disinformation. I think since our cyber law required that the victim report it to the authority, but in these things, the victims is not eligible to report to the law enforcement. Maybe with the assistance with our society, the NGO, maybe this could be the case that the law enforcement could be tracing back who's the one that been fortunate by this event. But just in the roughly speaking, maybe 10 years ago, there's no monetization of the social media. Maybe this is only just creating a traffic that could be monetized with some buzzers or some online media. But this is maybe, I don't want to talk about the speculation here. Maybe all of these things should be wrapping up with the investigation with the authorities, whether it's local authorities or the national law enforcement. But the investigation is a must. Maybe the topics or the cluster of the investigation may vary, but the investigation should be conducted, and based on that fact, maybe we could formalize the solution. The formula to wash out the military from Myanmar, maybe it's a global problem, yeah. But at least we could solve what we have in Indonesian land at the moment. What's the solution that could be practically implemented and could fulfill the justice with the local residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. I also note that we have in the room with us Cornelius Hano from Asia. So there's a whole bunch of us who can answer your questions. There were, I think, two hands, one here and one here. Wave your hand and the microphone will come to you. Yes. Yes, and then, you know. We have one, oh yes, here and then you.
From Al Jazeera English. I just would like to ask for clarification from Pak Lodi. Maybe it's quite similar, the question that I'm going to raise, is similar with our colleague from Tempo. It's about, you mentioned about the money that is borrowed from the local authority. My question will be, the money borrowed by who and who should reimburse it?
I think I just wanna answer that that's the speculation that could be answered if we did the investigation. One said that already provided with the money to grant or assist the refugee, but the other party says that there is no money that they are giving. We are have to uh, take all the cost burden by us. Since as a parliament, I cannot be speculate. I think it's better the proposition to investigate this current situation about the fund assistance would be appropriate at this time. So the we could see in which one is having the truth, right? Pak Iwan from Tempo said the UNHCR and the IMO already prepared with all of the fund, but we should know how the fund will be withdrawn. You withdraw with give the deposit, so any refugees come out that the government can use it, or the government should accept and burn all the costs and then take it back. At that time, at this time, we also didn't know the procedures at the moment. So from this party's information, if we could process some investigation, I think would be have a clearly situation what happened for the fund assistance for the refugee. Only it's more sensible with the local authorities. If you are ready with the fund and guarantees with the assistance, why we are not taking and accepting all of the refugees? Just the common sense, like if you put the money on the table in the government and we could use it directly when and timely when the refugees come, there will be no issues, right? That's the common sense for me, the common sense. But if the money, oh, I'm ready, but the refugees coming down first. And what's the time lapse between uh, accepting that, uh, having some cost, and then take the money from they have some SOP. I'm really sure because they are the multinational organization. So all of these things is I'm not uh, uh, label this as a shady, not a shady, but we just have to know in proper way because both sides claiming to be have the information that sounds logical to me, but we have to know the truth. Yeah. Yeah, I think you will have the same with me if you feel that they put the depositor and in time at the current time they are landed in the Indonesian soil. No need to write any reports to read because I think uh, no there's no complaint at all. And I think this will be clarified through the investigation. So what I will propose that there should be an investigation. So what the international organization statement could be justified or things like that that need to be improved and the things that all the matters is focusing to assist to the refugee that coming into the Indonesian soil.
Okay, yes.
Yes, quickly, thank you, Pak Budi, for agreeing to my idea for investigation. It's actually not purely my idea. There have been some people actually suggesting for this. But I would say that it has to be an independent investigation and it has to be done very quickly. So we cannot do it in a linear way. We wait until the outcome of the investigation comes out and we do something. Because the patterns and the symptoms are quite obvious. Independent investigation, and I think we can work it out between civil society, for example, right? Komnas HAM included, together and supported by the international, international body in charge for human rights. So investigation, the independent investigation must be done immediately. And it's good if the government also wants to do that because they have to. That's the function of a government, right? To put chaos into order. That's the function of leadership, to put chaos into order. Now, second, the issue about money, Pak. Masa iya sih kita nggak punya uang? Beneran? Beneran? I don't think so. I mean, this is not the first time that Indonesia handled this situation in terms of refugee. And Indonesia, and I can say this, has been able to manage disaster victims. These are, however, our own Indonesian people. So now we are differentiating the kind of people that we are helping. And what happened in the disaster situation are hundreds of thousands of people needing tents and check-up, sanitation, and all that. These are all happening in a chaotic situation. After their 70-day journey in open sea, can you expect them to actually do everything in order? And that's actually the job of humanitarian responders. That is to provide all of these facilities, right? But anyway, they want to do that, but they are prevented from doing so. So the issue is not money. Are you sure that Indonesian government doesn't have the money? Really? Well, we have been providing millions to Vanuatu after the disaster. And we cannot actually provide the money.
And will they get?
For what? 1,000, right? 700 of them are babies. Indonesia cannot do that. Now, perhaps you can also ask the question to Debbie, because this happened in Malaysia, right? And I'm not sure whether there was an investigation, but it was too late, and we don't want that to happen here. Yeah, so funding, whatever issue put up in, as part of the hate narrative, there is a solution for that. If we together list down, right? Funding lah, apalah, inilah, itulah. There is a solution, and it's a technical solution. What is needed is a will. Jangan sekali gedein. Itu conclusionnya. Over to you.
Thank you, Karina. So this is actually quite a lively Q&A session. And there is clearly a need for an investigation into why this hate campaign is happening and who's behind it, but also quite clearly a transparent dialogue to work out the technical issues of the humanitarian response. And Iwadrina very rightly reminds us it's not an issue. These are a significant number of the boat people are children and babies. 4 babies died, 3 on the way to Indonesia, and 1 died when their boat was pulled down. So it's a very terrible tragedy. So I think this is something that we have to keep in mind reality. We have a hand at the back. Somebody was, wanting to ask a question, yes, please go ahead.
Hi, to be honest, I don't have a question, but I want to share our solidarity and our working about the Myanmar issue. Is it okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So hi, my name is Anissa Azahra. I'm from Indonesian Legal Aid and Human Rights Association, or in Indonesia we call it CBSI. So first of all, it's really sad to see all the hate narrative against the Rohingya. It's breaking our heart to see all the hoax, the misinformation, the inhumanity, the humanism of Rohingya refugees. But after that, from our work at PBSI, now we are working and found that Indonesia government had contributed to the genocide of Rohingya. We are now pushing the accountability by President Jokowi and Minister of Defense Prabowo Subianto. It's because we have they are alleged supply of weapons from the three state-owned the enterprise, or we call it BUMN, to the Myanmar military junta. So we made a report, and now we're still working on that for advocating this to the Ombudsman and then the National Human Rights Commission and the Ministry of Defense. And all of this we did because the President Jokowi served as chair of the Defense Industrial Policy Committee, and then the Prabowo Subianto is served as daily chief executive. So the committee itself is represent the government to coordinate the national policy related to weapons from the upstream to the downstream. So when in this case is the production, the distribution, and the transaction of weapons are then used by the Myanmar to commit serious human rights violations. Because of this implementing the regulation of law number 16 of 2012 concerning the defense industry, the buyers of these weapons and the ammunition must explain the use of these weapons. But moreover, the quantities of these orders for the Myanmar, it didn't explain what the use of these weapons. And then the government, it's like this, it's the whole secret. No one knows about this. And because of that, we also found that the proposal is made by the Ministry of the Defense itself to the Defense Industry Policy Committee. So then the implementation was handed over to the BUMN that in charge of the defense industry. There is like a several BUMN like I forgot the name, but yeah, that's one of them is a Pinter. And then that's why we push the Indonesian government to take responsibility to stop the hate narrative against the Rohingya refugee, because we know that our government also involved in assessing the crimes against this humanity and the genocide phase of the by the Rohingya. So we should take responsibility. We should stop the hate narrative. Our people need to know that we are not clean. We are also have the sin for this all this genocide thing. And then we also not just talking about one's weapons. We're talking about this is the illegally supplying hundreds of millions of ammunition and firearms. And then we also found that one thing, the narrative that spread is from our monitoring. We see these digital tests are the same with the purely pattern with the shifting digital tests that happens in Indonesia. So what the Rohingya currently face is the digital text was more likely by design. So it can see the target of who experience digital issue is the people and the group that being targeted, because there is like a shift from the digital text pattern in Indonesia. Lately, this digital text was by the issue. So when this issue was spread largely, people that working on that issue, people that identified from that groups, they will most likely get attacked. And that's why we really push the government to have the responsibility for taking the responsibility for this and for the people of Indonesia to stop this hate narrative, because we also have responsibility for this genocide of the Rohingya. Thank you.
Thank you from our friend from PBHI for reminding us that in the end, we are fundamentally interconnected. That while we also deal with the impact, Indonesia may have also been contributing to the root cause, but also for reminding us that the hate campaign is a deliberate, not a spontaneous campaign. It is a deliberate one, which also reinforces the calls for an independent investigation. Do we have any other hands in the back? Yeah, Pak Bobby, and then.
Yes, thank you for the statement, but I just want to mention the data that you just spelled out here. Because I personally already asking the Minister of Defense in the about these issues. Yes, 2016, the PT Pindad is exported the sport aim for the Army's rifle meet or the shooting competition of the in Myanmar, AARM in 2016. And the latest export is in 2020. And it's already been statement from the defense ID. Starting from February 1st, 2021, they never have exported any product from the defense industry. So you have to be more careful because as a nation, we already in line with the UN resolution number 75-287 that restricted the arms supply to Myanmar. So formally, Indonesia is not engaging on that accusation. So as as a parliament, I would need to be clarified on the data because it's a serious issue. It's a serious accusation that already been answered by formally by the government and also already been checked by the state-owned enterprise itself. The CEO already gave the press release on October 5th, 2023. I heard this from Ibu Mercy Barrett. She called me and yelling at me. Bobby, why you never know that this one things by birth? Because we had just had some presentation about the smuggling of the arms and armament and ammo, and it's produced by our state-owned enterprise. No less than 2 weeks, I asked him with the stakeholder, and it's already been checked, and it's already been stated formally that the accusation is not happening. Thank you.
Yes, you were right.
I just want to respond why we should bring in and appoint the governments, central governments, yeah, but the state must come down and do this. And I've been thinking, why not the local community, local university that to give hands, yeah, to the situations, including organizing research on what is going on actually, because Jakarta is far, yeah, from Aceh. That's the first one. I really want the local university, local governments, not to wait for Jakarta people to come and say this, but we show that the most generous country in the world, namely Indonesia. Indonesia used to be, is being called as the most generous. That shows us, but I have a problem right now. in the situations of the preparation for elections, we have Palestinian situations, yeah, and we have Rohingya here. But look at the attitude of the Indonesians. For the Palestinians, they are so militant, yeah, and depending and even raising money, but for Rohingya is difficult. And this is really question for Indonesians, yeah, actually. Why? Or maybe because the Arabic is more important than the ASEAN, like the way we treat the cost of PRT there, obviously, oh, itu cuma Nabi, gitu ya. Jadi pusing juga ini ya kita sekarang ini. I have been calling up the friends and I said, please do something. Maybe see with aksi Palestine rather than aksi in front before our eyes. So that's my questions. And second, I've been trying to connect Yayasan Sukma, belong to Pak Surya Paloh, ya. They have Yayasan there, and they are trying to reach out to local governments because they willing to provide sekolah for the refugees. But they found difficulties and also get negative response from the local government. Jadi even though we have something that we can give it to the Rohingyas, but the local government is really problem. And but really the resources is there. Tapi sikap itu tadi juga betul.
Okay, so the point is, there are already resources. Resources is not a question. The question is attitude and political will. And speaking of that, as a member of the WHO, the White Hair Organization, I have to stand on the side of our young activists. When she's talking about the provision of weapons to the military in Burma, we also have to understand that's 2016 to 2020. In 2012, the violence targeting the Rohingya started. When the weapons were sent, those Rohingya were being targeted with escalating violence that led to the genocide in 2017. So the timeline is quite varied for her king. Just to support our young activists there, our next generation. But having said that, before I give the mic to the next question, we have quite a few questions online. I am going to share some of the comments, but also open up the questions. So the comments were generally about the fact that refugees are vilified globally. They are very often the easiest, the softest target for hate campaigns. And you could already see the gap in the law, in Indonesian law, that the victim of the hate speech is supposed to make the complaint. But if you are on a boat, if you are in a camp with barely any communication ability, how can you feel entitled to make a complaint? So this is something that we need to address. Merhon, I believe it's a human rights Rohingya organization based in Malaysia, also reminds us that we didn't come here to steal jobs or take over the country. We are just here for temporary protection until we find a durable solution. Someone from the RBVRIN says, how to counter negative narratives on social media regarding the Rohingya refugee issue. I think Ibu Ani also talked about some of the steps. So don't forget, go back to the YouTube and review what she said. And then here are the questions. 1, is the hate speech meaning from Acehis or others in Indonesia? 2, is the hate speech due to the usual reaction to refugees after the initial honeymoon period, or are there specific reasons? Now, this also matches with what Iwan asked, why Rohingya and why now? 3, what should the UN do that they are not doing? And 4, I heard that Aceh's fishermen are now blocking Rohingya boats. Is that true? And also one more question that came in online. Abraham Utama from the BBC News Indonesia. Indonesia has a presidential regulation 125 of 2016 that regulates how Indonesia should deal with coming of refugees from abroad. However, this regulation does not address the issue of how the refugee can live within local society during their wait for resettlement. How does UPR see this regulation gap? Does the government deliberately neglect the refugees and put all the responsibility to UN bodies? So specific questions about who's doing the hate speech, is it Chinese or are they Indonesians? What are the specific reasons for the hate speech? What should the UN do? Are Chinese fishermen now blocking Rohingya boats? And more specifically about Presidential Regulation 125. How does DPR see this regulation gap between receiving the regulation allows for the reception of refugees, but doesn't talk about what do we do with them when they're here. So lots of questions online before I give you the mic. Would anyone like to answer? Maybe the easiest one is the situation on the ground, Annie.
Before I answer, I would like to restate what I said. The problem nowadays, the root cause, one of the root causes, also the fact that the understanding about the issue of refugees in the Indonesian society is very minimal until today, and hopefully it will get better after today. But that's why people are easily triggered by misinformation and hoax. So one of the ways to counter it, of course, to create a more neutral and positive information, or it would be better if there is a more educational information provided by everyone who is possible to reach. It could be civil society organizations, NGOs, it could be the journalists, it just could be a community in Indonesia who try to make sure that everyone is educated enough to be able to understand for commenting hate speech on people who work or on Rohingyas nowadays. But the question of who initiated the hate are still a question in our side also. We are trying to work with academics, with people who have social media drones to see who started the flame in social media, because we know that one hate in social media could create big flames. It is just like a virus. It spread easily, especially understanding that there's a minimum knowledge in the society about Rohingya. So it's still under question, and we hope that everyone who is now working in this ground would help to find out who started the flame. But whoever started it, we need to know that it already happens. So we need to be able to counter it the way we are possibly able to do. As what I mentioned before in my speaking time, you can check out YouTube. Also about the fisherman who blocks the Rohingya boats. I would say it would be more suitable if the journalist on the Zoom meeting ask people on the ground in Aceh, because there are plenty of CSOs working there. You have Contrast Aceh, there's with refugee services, you have LBH, and maybe you can ask them about the situation on the ground for more specific information. But there has been one thing that we need to know, that all over the years, fishermen from Aceh has been very helpful for Rohingya refugees. They have been helping the boats, they have been helping the people because they're under the official declaration of laws. So we hope that no one could blame the fishermen before seeing or before asking the information on people on the ground. Yes, on the ground. And I guess that's just all that I will answer for now. But if there's like other questions after this, I hope that answers. Thank you.
We thank you, and we have a very specific question on presidential regulation 125 again.
I just want to answer that. I think all the regulation and we have also have the law that already accommodate the international standard, accept the refugee or any person that seek for an asylum. But the implementation, it's also have some challenge because the one that coming with a boat to Indonesian soil maybe not registered to UNHCR or IMO, the one that should be registered to be eligible as the refugee or the asylum seeker. So if there's no registration for those persons, the authorities will treat as a illegal immigrant. That's a totally a different thing because Indonesia already adopt the non-refoulement principle, also the non-penalization. Even though that we are not adopting the protocol, we are acknowledge the non-penalization. It means that we will see anybody that eligible for as a refugee or as a asylum seek for the asylum. We are adopting 100% of them. But the challenge is the one that coming to Indonesian soil that should be have the registration first and acknowledged by UNHCR has no paper or no data. So if there's no paper and no data, the treating as an illegal immigrant. It's a two different things. For the one that already been eligible for the asylum and the asylum seeker and the refugee, we already fully conducting the principle of non-refoulement and non-penalization. But the one that don't have any other document or any other papers that been registered that should be already been in advance as a UNHCR task of the IMO, it's a totally different thing.
Yeah, only short. When I contact some people from Menteri Hukum, the Ministry of Law, who are in charge in handling the shelter, there is actually technical SOP saying that in shelter they are not allowed to have direct contacts with the surrounding people. That's why then the Yayasan Sukma is really difficult to negotiate. We cannot give the educations within the shelter because it is impossible. But at the same time, when they want to take out the students or the children, it is not allowed. So it's really dilemma. Therefore, I think somehow we must do the revision on the presidential decree because it's really the rights of the children, especially when education.
Thank you. Actually, what Ibu Eva also raised is this issue about how do we demystify or build greater understanding between refugees and the community. If the refugees are segregated away from the community, how can we build a community dialogue, a social dialogue? So clearly there is a real need not just to have a FAQ somewhere about refugees, but really a community relations strategy, which will allow both the refugee communities and the host communities to understand each other better, and also and learn how to get along with each other. If refugees are segregated, they won't know what are the social standards or the social expectations of the broader community. We are actually coming to the end of 5 p.m. We originally allocated 3 to 5, thinking that we'll be done by 4:30. But I think it's really inspiring and also heartwarming to see the level of interest and the level of very specific interest in the contributions. We have one more question. The gentleman in green shirt. Luckily, he's not wearing the police military uniform green, but a kind of a nice shade of green, fern green.
Thank you. My name is Stephen. I work for my question is, last week the political minister Mahfud MD said that there will be a patrol of Bakamla, the maritime police in Aceh. Has that been implemented and has there an increase of alertness from the local security officials there? Also, I read press release from a police that said that Aceh Timur police is conducting a patrol with Panglima Laut. So is that can also be confirmed, and how significant is the patrol, and how is the response from the the Panglima Laut foundation?
Thank you, Pak Stephen. But as a parliament, I haven't checked that information since now we are in recess session and campaign already begin. But I will check it out and get back with ASAP with baby. Yeah, so I don't know what's the status. But all of the petrol is the correct approach by the Minister of Coordinator. Why? Because we have to differentiate between the refugee, the asylum seeker, and the illegal immigrant. That's a totally different treatment. If all already eligible for the as a refugee, there's no regulation and legislation yet, but we have the roadmap, we have the phase, we have the timeline to improve the status, or at least they have the protection in Indonesian soil. But it's totally different things if it's a illegal immigrant. That's why we need a collaboration, like Pak Iwan said at the beginning. The UNHCR and the IM should maybe if investigation is too harsh, maybe we have to say the fact finding line. They do their job properly, because if all the registration needed, like I said, even though we are not adopting and ratifying the protocol, we still have the hospitality and we have the law and the legislation and regulation to treat the refugee and the asylum seeker. But this is cannot be mixed by the illegal immigrant. That's why one of the points is the definition of the refugee, the one that fled from their original country. But Bu Erlina say that in some situation, and today we also say in some situation, they are not cannot be defined directly coming out from their original country. This is the things that we should redefine. So the definition of the refugee and the asylum seeker that match with the IMO and UNHCR requirement to be fulfilled. If all the registration is done, we have no doubt all the regulation, all of the legislation, and all of the money is there. But the problem is, if the one that coming to Indonesian soil, we cannot differentiate which one is eligible, which one is the illegal immigrant, which one that the smuggling by the international uh, traffic things. That's the challenge, and I think with the collaboration, with the communication with the stakeholder, and begin with the initial fact finding. I think this is the base to formalize what's the communications, what's the solution to overcome and treat the eligible refugee as they already been regulated.
Thank you. But so we don't know for sure, we can't confirm one way or another if there's heightened sea patrols and whether the sea patrols are to rescue refugees or to repel them. Having said that, I just need to, we just also need to be aware that some refugees who have been resettled to third countries, they were refugees in even 2 or even 3 countries during the course of their lifetime. There's no, you can't be a virgin refugee and go straight from the country and then go to be settled. It doesn't work it does not work like that. And we hope that the desire to verify whether someone is a refugee or not happens after they are allowed to land safely.
That's what
So
well, can we do the differentiation after they land first? So we rescue them first, right? And besides, there are babies there. Are they illegal immigrants? Come on. You know, it doesn't make sense. So based on the humanitarian grounds and the principle of non-refoulement, then we have to actually save them first because they are in our territories. And after that, based on the regulations, both national regulation and international principles and international laws, then we identify them. And that's why UNHCR and IOM are there, and we are inviting them, by the way. We are inviting them to be in our country some years ago. It's not that they want to come here. We are inviting them. If we want to expel them, that is a nonsense, really. So yes, but we need to go through that differentiation, but do that after they are safe first. How can they even tell you who they are if they are still thirsty or yearning for food?
on that point, if there are there, and this is the final call. This is the final call. We are boarding the exit. We're going to finish this session. Any hands? Okay. Thank you, everyone, for coming here online and in person to join this event. We very much appreciate your presence and also your engagement, detailed, thoughtful questions, and detailed, thoughtful sharings and responses. I'm desperately trying to put up the poster so that I have the list of all of our folks who were co-organizing this. Okay, so thank you everybody for joining. If you missed anything, don't worry. This is being live streamed and will be curated on the YouTube of ASEAN Indonesia, ASEAN Burma, and I think Forum Asia. For those of you who want to know more about what's been happening with the Rohingya, don't hesitate to look at the ASEAN Burma briefer that was just published this week titled Deepening Genocide. And while we talk about the root cause, here's a sobering thought. During the month of November, the illegal junta of Burma launched 113 airstrikes, again, mostly against civilians. This is the highest number of airstrikes in a single month in the history of the country. This is what we're dealing with, and this is what both people are running away from. And so thank you everybody for coming in person. Thank you everyone for coming, joining us online. Thank the organizers, the co-organizers. I've just lost battery power, so I'm just going to guess. Swarka, Rohingya Mayafana Collaborative Network, Initiatives for International Dialogue, ASEAN Indonesia, Progressive Voice, Contrast, Forum Asia, ASEAN Parliamentarians for Human Rights, AMAN Indonesia, and ASEAN. Yes, thank you everybody for being here. We hope the dialogue continues. See you next time. Thank you. And of course, thank you to our listeners.
Maybe I think what we have today should be summarized as because every